Hasbro Interactive Case Study, presented by Kuongnam Thai, Jingjing Fang, Shartika, and Michelle Cheng. Hasbro is a global toy company with almost 100 years of history. Hasbro Incorporated was founded by the Hessenfeld brothers in 1923. Products by Hasbro include Mr. Potato Head, Monopoly, and G.I. Joe. The CEO of Hasbro Incorporated, Alan Hessenfeld, believed that interactive games would have a huge market in the future, putting Tom Dusenberry in charge in 1995 to build a new division called Hasbro Interactive. At the beginning, Hasbro Interactive achieved huge success, gaining $35 million in 1996 and doubling it up to $86 million in 1997. Hasbro Interactive games such as Frogger and Tonka Search and Rescue were in the industry's top 10 list. In 1998, they earned $196 million, and Dusenberry expected to reach $1 billion in revenue in 1999. However, they only reached $237 million. In the late 2000s, Hasbro Interactive was sold to the French software company Infogrames. The issues that were found in the case study include communication issues and motivation issues. The first communication issue to be discussed is between the two companies, Hasbro and Hasbro Interactive. When Hasbro Interactive was established, there was a lack of communication and monitoring between Hasbro and Hasbro Interactive. Mr. Dusenberry was given too much freedom, which resulted in a substantial separation from the company. This led to mismatched promotion initiatives and quarrels. The second communication issue is between Mr. Dusenberry and Hasbro Interactive's personnel. Given freedom to make decisions, Mr. Dusenberry made all operational decisions by himself, including those related to the organizational structure, product selection, and partnership agreements. He pushed for massive expansions that needed a lot of money by introducing new games such as Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, Atari games, and many more. Without a clear planning or a financial budget, he missed seeing the outcome from their ambitions and caused a $74 million loss in 1999. Due to his ambitions, he had little time left to efficiently manage the company's financial monitoring systems and therefore seized the fall of the company. The next issue to be discussed will be motivation issues. Mr. Dusenberry and Hasbro executives were mainly concerned on the revenues earned by Hasbro Interactive. Setting such high targets seems to show Hasbro executives pushing Hasbro Interactive into becoming a quick success in such a short time but without a clear plan. Secondly, with monetary incentives being the only source of motivation to employees, it may have caused job dissatisfaction. According to the motivator hygiene theory, an employee has two needs: motivator needs that produce job satisfaction and hygiene needs that produce job dissatisfaction. Without other important motivations such as a good working environment, employees showed a lack in company loyalty. Instead of fighting to revive the company, the employees chose to leave. Furthermore, Mr. Dusenberry's action of inquiring and seeking career options outside of the company further fueled to the lack of company loyalty amongst the employees. Instead of encouraging and motivating employers to revive the company, his actions discouraged and sealed their decision to leave the company. Analysis of the issues. We will analyze the issues from an individual perspective, group perspective, and organizational perspective. We will first look at Mr. Dusenberry, the president of Hasbro Interactive. Mr. Dusenberry has many great characteristics. From the psychological tests stated, some of his striking characteristics include extraversion, sensing, feeling, low level of conscientiousness, perceiving, and high level of narcissism. He is enthusiastic, verbal, assertive, and animated, but more impulsive and takes risky decisions. He focuses more on the present and tends to be overconfident and overestimates his knowledge. He might be a creative person and a talented visionary, but he lacks in planning and managing skills. For example, he blindly accepts Hasbro's impossibly high targets. Based on Kantian ethics, Mr. Dusenberry was not acting out of duty, since from the beginning he was just very ambitious with his ultimate goal to replace Alan Hessenfeld. He always agreed with impossible targets, hoping to give a good impression. This behavior pushed for major expansions, which caused huge losses. In line with the expectancy theory, he found his job to be attractive. He had huge motivation to succeed and supported by his skills and capabilities in the interactive industry. However, his ambitions seemed to manipulate his responses to manage the company and caused its downfall. The second individual we will look at is Mr. Hassenfeld. Mr. Hassenfeld hires Mr. Dusenberry and has a positive attitude towards him, an attitude that is in line with the theory Y management by Douglas McGregor, whereby he assumes that people are self-motivated and thrive on responsibility, hence giving freedom to Mr. Dusenberry in making decisions by himself. Mr. Hassenfeld's characteristics are intuition, feeling, and high level of agreeableness. He processes and judges things and information through impressions, feelings, and extenuating circumstances. That is why Mr. Hassenfeld is always believing in Mr. Dusenberry, even when the facts are the opposite. Moreover, when Mr. Hassenfeld gave full power of control over the company, he did not realize that Mr. Dusenberry would be taking on so many roles in a team. Taking himself out of the management and lacking oversight, there wasn't good communications with Mr. Dusenberry about the plans for the company. Mr. Hassenfeld's motivation seemed to change from building up the interactive industry into purely a profit-making company by setting too high a goal for Hasbro Interactive to achieve. He failed to maintain his desires to accomplish building up the interactive industry. The third individual that we look at is Mr. Baum. Mr. Baum is hired by Mr. Hassenfeld to help Hasbro operate more professionally. He admires Mr. Dusenberry and is captivated by Hasbro Interactive's potential. Mr. Baum's characteristics are intuition, feeling, high level of agreeableness, and quite a high level of conscientiousness. He processes and judges situations and others based on impressions and feelings. He is also considerate, which is why Mr. Baum always believed in Mr. Dusenberry and supported his plans even when the facts stated otherwise. He is also organized, systematic, and persistent, but at some point, he is irresponsible and lacks integrity, especially when he left the company for a better offer. From the first time Mr. Baum joined the Hasbro's team, he saw that Hasbro Interactive had huge potential to generate a lot of cash. The way he agrees to set a higher target for Hasbro Interactive shows that his goal towards Hasbro Interactive was only a short-term goal, without a plan for Hasbro Interactive's going concern. Analysis through the group and organization perspective. Mr. Dusenberry is a leader in Hasbro Interactive. Based on a distributed leadership theory, for a team to be successful, the leader needs to be envisioning, organizing, spanning, and social. In this case, he was successful in envisioning by creating a strong vision of the company amongst his subordinates. Partly successful in social, as he only had a certain extent of negotiations outside of the company. Unsuccessful in organizing by not providing structure and deadlines for his personnel, leading to the company's development team missing deadlines. And unsuccessful in spanning by failing to coordinate the team's activities with the rest of the organization, resulting in miscommunications. Biases and errors in decision-making. Mr. Dusenberry was overconfident and overestimated in his decision-making, especially in the company's expansion processes. He works hard to make the company successful as a way to achieve his own ambition. Mr. Hassenfeld's judgment had confirmation bias when it came to Mr. Dusenberry and the company. The interactive division was his dream, and as such caused his judgments to be biased. Always looking to confirm his belief of Mr. Dusenberry, it led to him giving too much freedom to Mr. Dusenberry. He did nothing, even when Mr. Dusenberry failed to deliver a business plan. Mr. Baum also had a confirmation bias towards Mr. Dusenberry and Hasbro Interactive. He saw the company as an attractive business and admires Mr. Dusenberry. This admiration led to him making biased judgments along the way. Failure to achieve the increasingly high targets made Mr. Dusenberry and his personnel stressed. Mr. Dusenberry coped with the stress of a dissatisfying situation through withdrawal by looking for a new job. Our first recommendation for Hasbro Interactive is to create a business plan that contains short-term and long-term goals, including the strategies needed to achieve them. Several scenarios should also be included, for example, favorable and unfavorable conditions of the market to the company's strategies. A SWOT analysis should also be included to understand the business better by addressing the company's weaknesses, deter threats, capitalize on opportunities, taking advantage of the strengths, and developing business goals and strategies. Secondly, the company should set up regular meetings to avoid miscommunications. Monthly regular meetings between Hasbro and Hasbro Interactive should be scheduled so both companies will have a mutual understanding of the company's progress and to make adjustments when needed. Weekly regular meetings in each division amongst leaders should be scheduled to keep everyone updated with the work in progress and to solve any difficulties faced by the team. Other recommendations include leadership training to Mr. Dusenberry to enable him to manage his team more effectively, decision-making training as well for him to make decisions more efficiently, and a personal skills development training to Hasbro Interactive's personnel to improve their skills to be in line with the rapid improvement in gaming systems. The takeaway from this case study is that it is very important to emphasize on job enrichment, to maximize the potential of every single employee by consciously recognizing the opportunities to promote satisfaction and demote dissatisfaction in the workplace. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation.